The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stage Door Show tonight. This is Dave Hondel. Tonight's guest is an award-winning actor and filmmaker that has studied at some of the world's most prestigious schools and improv conservatories. And her versatility as an artist has been recognized both in the U.S. and internationally. Please welcome to the show, Carolyn Bridget Kennedy. Welcome to the show, Carolyn.
Thank you for having me.
So I know looking at, your work over the several years here, a lot of it's improv based, and I know that I'm a huge improv fan. I think improv, conservatories and the training that you get in improv, I think helps you not only in the comedic, genre, but also in the dramatic genre as well, because you have to think on your feet much more, and you're trained to do that. So what are your thoughts about improv, and how could that help an actor that takes improv maybe before they get into other genres? Is that helpful?
I think it's very helpful. I think it's a wonderful life skill, in fact, even if you have no interest in that, but you're just wanting to improve your people skills, your listening skills, business growth, development, that type of thing. It just really enables you to go moment to moment and listen and respond and pick up things like body language from other people. Also creating your own characters and really getting into depth of how other people see the world, point of view. That also translates into writing, of course, when you can understand how people think and what motivates their behavior. But just really connecting and living in between the moments so that you're not just like, oh, my line, and then stop and wait, and suddenly all life stops, and then you're going on ahead of that. So I find it translates to dramatic acting and comedic acting, the ability to think on your feet really quickly and go with your instincts on things. Respond kind of what your first instinct is and make that work no matter what it is.
And also for the theater as well. We have a lot of theater actors that listen to the show, and improv. I've worked with a lot of actors myself, and improv has really taught them when you're in a live audience situation. If somebody forgets their line or somebody maybe says the wrong thing, you have to think quickly on your feet. So that improv, really helps with that as well.
Very much so. And there's a little saying that we have in improv, which is, I've got your back. So you always have the other actor's back, and your goal is always to make the other person look good. So you've got, no matter what's going to happen on stage, in theater, or on film, you'll take advantage of those magic moments and maybe turn them into something really special that, you find something much more interesting than was there without the accident or mistake.
Yeah, Second City, the Groundlings, Upright Citizens Brigade. These are some just phenomenal, training facilities for somebody who's going to be, an actor down the road, either comedic or otherwise. But I know a lot of SNL actors started out at these, Second City and so forth. So your experience at these conservatories, what was that like for you? What did you take away from that your time there?
Well, I found each of the different improv schools is kind of like if you think about playing soccer or some type of sport in another country or another, location. There's similar rules and there's different rules. So you just kind of learn to play how that particular school challenges and what their style is, what their rules are, and you learn to play among them. It really is helpful, though, to kind of participate in other things. The Upright Citizens Brigade, for example, is long form improv. So you're kind of learning with a group to kind of create a thread based off an opening of some sort, and then working off of 3 presentational kind of short little scenes that are started, and then how to advance those 3 scenes forward with 2 more beats after that, and then to thread it all together into kind of a cohesive thread. So you're kind of writing a full half-hour show where everything from the top threads through to the very end. So it's a very kind of exciting experience, and when it works amazingly well, it's super rewarding. Second City is individual short-form sketches, so you're learning to kind of create and improvise, and as you go through their program, higher up in the conservatory, you work on writing sketches based out of improvisation. So it's a very helpful tool to learn to write and translate into sketch and get into performing sketch and doing a full grad review show, a 1-hour sketch show that your group of, let's say, 8 fellow cast members pull together and do all these different character-based sketches, perhaps with some type of theme that threads through the sketches, but each thing is a standalone piece. Perhaps there's a running bit that goes through. With Groundlings, Groundlings is extremely character-based. So they are very, very focused on creating and developing unique characters. So every time you're up performing on the stage, you're learning how to create someone with a different voice, a different face, a different physicality as far as how you move or walk. It should be so different from you and recognizable, yet passable if you were to walk into a supermarket and talk with that voice. So that's actually been extremely helpful with voiceover type work and that type of thing. And as I said, probably translates extremely well to acting and understanding when you get a set of sides, how is this character thinking based on what they're saying in the script. I can't emphasize and say that one is greater than the other because they offer different benefits. Yeah. And I think the more benefits you get in different areas, the more you grow as an artist overall.
And over your years of acting and training like you have, I know you've done both comedic and drama based, work. So do you have a favorite? Are they just two different things and you enjoy them both?
I have a great analogy for this. I would say that for dramatic acting, for me, dipping into a dramatic role is kind of like enjoying a nice steak dinner. It's very satisfying. It's fulfilling. Sure. It's a bit of a longer lasting, satiating thing that kind of sustains you for a time. And it's that type of reward. I'd say that doing comedy is like having chocolate cake. It's amazing. It's good. It gives you a good sugar rush. It's immediate satisfaction and laughter and enjoyment, and enriching in that way. But I would say I could not only live off of steak dinners and I could not only live off of chocolate cake. For right now, my writing and where my writing tends to take me is usually in a comedic bent because it's usually things that catch my attention in a certain way. And it's usually there's some humorous thing that intrigues me about a certain type of person or a certain type of situation. And that's usually what I like to explore in writing so far. That doesn't mean I won't ever write dramatically and have not written dramatically, but it's just, I think, what I tend to veer to the most. Emotion is so strong, and when we get things that connect to us emotionally, it's hard to turn your head from it, and look the other way. And there's only so much time you have to develop ideas. So I tend to go with the ones that amuse me.
So you draw inspiration more from everyday type of events that you see that kind of catch your fancy and you write it down?
All the time. I make observations constantly, whether it's, a misstated phrase or a scenario that I observe, just in the supermarket, or somebody's behavior at a coffee shop, or the way, two people interact in their relationship over a meal at the table next to you. It could be anything, and it's just so observational. So I jot down everything into my phone or on sticky notes, wherever I have something to just put it there so I know it's not lost. Yeah. And then I've got things to draw from. And sometimes when you write something and you've got that, this is where this belongs. This has to go here. And it sometimes feels like when you're in a situation, maybe you're at a return counter and something bizarre is happening with the return and you're not, it makes life a little more enjoyable because you're now thinking, I could use this for something, or what is going on here, as opposed to being grumpy about a situation.
Yeah, and you've also hit the film festival circuit many times and have been very successful. I mean, just several awards, not just here in the United States, but Berlin and Canada and a lot of different festivals. And what are your thoughts about the festival circuits? Because I think personally, being in entertainment for a while, being an indie filmmaker myself, I feel that the audience at film festivals are really they're very smart. I mean, I think, they go to these things because they want to see what the new works are that are out there, but they go with kind of a different mindset almost than somebody who's going for entertainment. They're going to as more of an artist, like they're looking at the performances, they're looking at the direction, the writing. Do you find that to be true? And do you find that the audiences sometimes, can be very critical of the work that they see, but also, I mean, an award winner like yourself, that's got to be very satisfying to see that, I mean, that these people like your work, but these people are very discerning people as well when they go to these things, right?
Sure. Well, I think with projects, it's very important to understand, like, if it's your project, no one's going to champion your project like you will. You know, people who are in it and people who are involved with behind the scenes things will care about it, but not the same way that you will as the person who wrote it, produced it, directed it, if you're really close to it. So I believe work has to be seen. And once you exchange art with the public, that's when it truly becomes art. Yeah. So, you know, if you create something with the guise that everyone is going to love it or like it, you're never going to please anyone because it's going to be way too vanilla. You have to create with your own comedic voice or your own dramatic viewpoint, whatever it is you're trying to convey as a filmmaker through your particular film. I think you have to spend time researching which are the right festivals and what could be the right home. Developing a festival strategy as to, you know, certain festivals have requirements that it can't be debuted at another festival first, or maybe it can't be released online. There's certain particulars. So, you know, kind of plan that out a little bit before you're going to just jump into and throwing it into random festivals. And then, yes, it is a discerning group because by and large, I think it's a lot of other filmmakers that are coming to see films. As the festivals get larger, of course, there's more a wider based audience, but I think it's helpful because people become aware of you and aware of your work, and completing work is so important. And I think, you know, a film is never really finished per se. There's always something you could have done better, written later, but eventually you have to let it go and just put it there and see what the response is to it. And yes, so far I've been very fortunate. The response has been favorable. I've met a lot of people who have responded to the work because it's shared. And I think it's important as a filmmaker to build your credentials. And that's one way to do and build your bona fides is to get people in the industry who, you know, likely were filmmakers themselves or are running and programming a festival where they're looking at a wide variety of work, and giving those accolades certainly lends to increase your viability.
Do you find that being a filmmaker and being behind the camera makes you a better actor out there?
Absolutely. Very much so. And I think, you know, I made it a point early on, you know, one of the first projects I was an assistant director on. And then I was I took a course on lighting and grip, and I wanted to understand how lighting work. I've directed, I think, 3 short films in the last year, and that was kind of my first go at directing. So I've learned a lot through that because you kind of have to think visually of what the shots are that you're going to need later when you're in editing, and making sure you get all the coverage you're going to need to kind of put this together, and how you're going to get the performances you want, the look and the feel, the tone of the piece, everything, and kind of working off of your writing. In my case, it is my own writing that I've directed. And then, of course, as a writer, you know, you realize, how do people talk? And, you know, does everyone in the dialogue, have you covered all their names? Would the dialogue of all the characters sound like they were coming from the same people? Or do they sound distinctly like you could say, oh, these are definitely so-and-so's lines. This is definitely every time this character is speaking because of the way they speak. So that's another thing that you get into from viewing by wearing the different hats. As an actor, you're thinking about and understanding where you fit in the production. You know, if you're playing a co-star role, 5 and under line in a half-hour show, the show is not about you. The show, you're there to help the main characters along. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so you begin to understand where you fit in the larger puzzle of things. And that certainly is very helpful. And as an actor analyzing text, well, the writer put these words for this particular character, and based on the text of what my character says, my character is clearly this type of person. You know, there's what is the writer wanting out of this character, and you can tell by the way they speak. Yeah. You know, do they speak very tersely? Do they have a lot of, you know, gonna instead of going to? There's different things that you can catch. Their educational status, their sociability, how verbose they are. It's all helpful. And every time I wear one hat, I can always think about the other hats as I'm doing it. So I feel it really makes you better overall.
Yeah, for sure. And then also, do you have like a piece of work that you've done, whether it's theatrical or whether it's, for TV or maybe a student film or anything that you've done over your many years? Do you have like that one project that you look back on and it makes you smile every time?
Well, it's actually quite a recent one, but it's been quite joyous, and I'm actually going to see the edit of this particular project tomorrow night. So I'm on like screening eve today. But it was a USC multicam, so for University of Southern California, and it was a half-hour multicam that they wrote, and 4-camera shoot in front of a 90-person audience.
Wow.
It was quite a tremendous experience, and I got to play a lead, so that was kind of an extraordinary experience. But to have that, the multi-cameras are so rare.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers maybe shoots like a handful of them.
Sure.
So to have a leading role and a major part in a script, and then the level of the faculty that were involved were just mind-blowing. The directing instructor, he directed 170 episodes almost of King of Queens over 8 seasons.
Yeah.
The writing teacher, won an Emmy for Frasier, and he's written on The Simpsons. So you've got these masters who are there, and just to be a part of something like that was so special. Plus, my character had an oil painting of themselves on their wall. And so the creme de la creme, I think every actor thinks someday I'll have an oil painting of myself. And I got to keep it. So it's pretty incredible.
Well, I was going to say the multi-camera shoot, that's something obviously, in sitcoms, it's the blocking is so critical, and people don't realize that, when you're on the theater stage or in a sitcom situation, blocking means everything, because you have to be facing the camera or not facing the camera, whichever. But if you're not in your spot, it could almost ruin the whole thing. So it's important, and the rehearsals and the hours that go into something like that it's very critical, right?
Exactly. It was almost a month from the time that we had the table read right through to the shoot, and we were dealing with writers rewriting and these students who just loved what they were doing, operating these amazing cameras that I think one of the major studios donated to the school. Like, it was quite an incredible experience. And then, of course, the live audience shoot. It was just everything every actor could ever want, at least for me.
Sure. And then also coming out of the pandemic and coming out of, the quarantine, which was a couple years ago, but now, it's got to be like a renewed sense of freedom when it comes to being creative for an artist, whether they're actor, director, or anything else. When you're, you're basically handcuffed, for that time that we couldn't be out there doing either performing or shooting or whatever. And now it's just like, now we can get back to it again. And what's that feeling like for you as an artist and as a creative to be back there doing your craft in front of people and collaborating when we had to do everything through Zoom before?
Yeah, it's interesting because I found I didn't want to stop growing during the pandemic. So when the pandemic happened, I got to things that I was able to do. And so, if you put an analogy of, for example, improv in person is ideal. Yeah. Improv over Zoom, no, it's not the same. But it still can be done, and it's surprising how fun and effective it can still be. And if you have the one choice of you're locked up in your house by yourself, not seeing anyone, or you're improvising with a group of people over Zoom and having fun and making the best of a situation, then I think that's what I'd rather do, and stay sharp and not have waited 2 years for things to, open back up, whenever that was going to be. And I don't think anybody knew how long that was going to drag on. So I chose to continue doing improv online. I did my Second City Conservatory grad show entirely over Zoom as like a pilot project to see if it could work, and it did. And I'm so proud of what we accomplished at a time when many people weren't doing things. I got to writing and connected with some Emmy-winning writers who suddenly had time on their hands and helped give notes and mentor my husband and I on a pilot that we were writing together. And, that created a great opportunity as well. And during that time, that's actually when I directed my first 3 films during the bubble of things, because I wanted to get creative and get down to still making things and growing. So I think you learn to become creative in different ways. You can rewrite something and think about a creative way to shoot it. I directed 7 actors in their own homes over Zoom while they filmed with their own equipment and lit themselves. And I, watched the viewfinder of their camera and their performance and gave notes back and forth. And then they did a digital drop of files. So we did this whole SAG production, and I think 6 of the actors got their SAG cards through that.
Wow.
So that was Masks. So it was a well-received little short that had a broad appeal, and it was born out of an idea of masks because of the pandemic, and it was done as a mock PSA.
That's correct. That's incredible. Just finding different ways to keep moving forward, I think, is amazing. Talk to those people out there, some of our artists that are maybe living in small town in Mississippi or rural town in, Iowa, Minnesota, where they feel like, they just, they're not in LA, they're not in New York, they're not in Chicago or Atlanta, wherever the big, studios are. Talk about, what kind of advice can you give to that person, or, inspiration, I guess, to say, look, it doesn't matter what town you're in, you can make your footprint anywhere. And that's the way that's what I try. I try to push that on my show, to try to say, look, if you're a creative person, it doesn't matter where you are, you can make your footprint anywhere. So talk about the fact that you're in a big market, but they're not. So what do you say to that person that wants to do this as a career?
Mm-hmm. I can definitely speak to that person, because that person was me about 10 years ago. So I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and there are not a lot of productions that take place there. I took my first acting class at the time and did background on a few projects, and I was mesmerized at what was happening, and I wanted to be a part of it very much so. The biggest piece of advice I got is no one is going to discover you on your couch at home. Right. So create something, put it out there. That was how and why I created my web series. We filmed it in our home, 6 episodes, a 38-minute worth of series. I edited the first 2 episodes. We acted and everything, wrote everything, shot it all, put it together. And that's actually a large part of the reason and why I am in Los Angeles now, is because those doors opened. It got accolades in Seoul, Korea, and in the UK, and in Rome and Berlin, and suddenly things were opening up. So I had never been to Los Angeles until 2017, when we received an invitation that I was nominated for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy at LA Web Fest. And our web series, shot in our home in Canada, was going to be screening at Sony Studios. Wow. So we flew down in 2017 and came to the web series, saw LA for the first time, from a region where not much was happening, and here everything is happening. And just a short number of months later, I ended up getting a visa for acting, writing, and producing because of the projects I made by myself. Wow. So I think the biggest piece of advice, and then, of course, my husband and I had a conversation. We didn't want to be 95 years old one day and go, what would have happened?
Yeah,
what would have happened? Yeah. So we've been living in 2 countries for close to 5 years, and it has been the most rewarding journey with the greatest of sacrifice. Yeah. We'd love to be together, but in this way, we are never going to wonder what would have happened. We're both enjoying this journey together, and we're on it together. You can't listen to someone telling you there's only one way to do something. It would have been easy for me to say, hey, it's never going to happen because you live in this region. And until you get hired on a show and you get certain number of roles, and then you win these particular awards in this way, that's when you can eventually get an opportunity for someone to bring you to, at the next level of things. But there's no reason you can't make your own stuff now. I mean, everybody has a phone with an amazing camera on it. Yeah. There's basic editing software on any MacBook. And just take an idea and get it out there. And from that first idea, you'll learn things, baptism by fire, on what you want to do differently with the next thing you make. And you learn from your mistakes. It's really, the only way you can continue to grow, because you're never going to make your first project out of the gate and amazing. Somebody said, don't make the first thing your baby, because you will kill your baby. Yeah. You don't want to do
10
that.
Years later, you watch it and you want to, yeah.
Yes. So just, make something small. It doesn't have to be like make a 1-minute film, make a 5-minute film. It doesn't have to be a long thing. It doesn't have to require any more resources than what you have around you. If you're the one writing it, write with what you have.
Yeah.
And then make that work and just get it finished and then start the next thing.
It's great advice, and mentioning like the 1-minute film or do something even if it's short. Today, obviously we're in a TikTok society, right? Where people will scroll through their phones, and they, these are short little, these little vignettes that people put together, but they're successful. I mean, some of these people have, over 1 million followers, and they're just doing short little things that don't require a lot of, I guess a set or a crew or anything else. They could just do it in their backyard. So that's great advice, I think, right now, because when we grew up, we didn't have, the TikTok, we didn't have social media, we didn't have cell phones. So, I mean, right now is like, I guess, this is the best time to be a creative. You have everything available to you just on your cell phone.
Yes, and you're your own marketing department. You can put your work out and distribute it. Everybody can see it. It's available. So I think, yes, don't delay. If you feel you have ideas and you have a creative voice, put it out there, and you never know who will connect with your work and where that will lead. And I would also say, don't shy away from opportunities that open up, because you never know what opportunities will beget other opportunities. And you don't know, maybe 5 years from now, you can trace back and say, oh, this thing happened because this happened, and then that happened, and this event happened, and this. So, say yes to things like student films. Say yes to, working with up and coming filmmakers. Don't feel like you're too big to do anything. If you're available and you have the time, it's a good thing to give your creativity to help other people. And it also helps you. You learn, you grow, you're, doing something creative, you're meeting other like-minded people, and you don't know where that will go someday.
Yeah. Everybody wants to leave a legacy, behind Carolyn. So, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind when it's all said and done to your fans, to your viewers, and anybody that you run into over your career? I
think what matters the most to me is knowing that other people feel inspired to do creative things because they've seen what I have done and decided to follow a creative path. A handful of times people have come out to me and been like, hey, I saw that you did your web series, so now I'm writing a web series and it's done this and this, and it's, gotten into such and such a festival. Or, hey, you know what? Because I was seeing what you were doing on Facebook, I ended up starting to write my book that I was doing. It's little things, knowing that everything has a ripple. And I think everybody has that little person inside them that was 5 years old who was like, I like painting, I like drawing, I like singing, I like playing the piano, whatever it is that they like, or acting, whatever you like to do. Somehow we all got taught, that's not an income and it's not a job, so we can't do it or we shouldn't do it. And we get into these, at least for me, I got into a desk job and there was nothing creative about it. I didn't even know this was an option, but I've never been happier than I am now doing something that I really enjoy and that I love. There's that element of play. Right. So I think, if I could help teach people to not take themselves and take life so seriously, and to consider things that maybe they loved or enjoyed either when they were younger or that they have an interest in now, to not wait and put off the, oh, I'll do that when I retire, or I'm too old to do that now. I'd say don't listen to any of that and just start doing it.
That's great. That's great legacy to leave behind for sure. Carolyn, can't thank you enough for being on the show. I mean, everything that you've done, it's just, it's amazing work that you've done. And also we can't wait to see what's coming up next. I want to see if, I don't know, is this going to be available for viewing, this USC multicam shoot that you did?
I will definitely be getting a copy for myself at some point, and then I'll have to see what they're going to be doing with it. There's a trailer that's going to be released, and I think they have some plans to put it in the festival circuit, and of course to try to pitch it. So I'll share what I can when I can.
So I know you have a big social media following as well. So tell our listeners where they can find you.
Sure. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Carolyn B. Kennedy, Carolyn, middle initial B, and then Kennedy like the president. And then I'm on Facebook as well. I have a fan page. It's facebook.com/Carolyn Bridget Kennedy. And of course, I'm in IMDb, the same thing, Carolyn Bridget Kennedy.
All right. Well, thank you again, Carolyn, and best of luck to you and your work. And you're always welcome on the show. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave. It's been a pleasure.